Hello, welcome to The Conversation on News Central Television. This is a program where we bring you up to speed with all the political happenings on the African continent. I am Gbenga Aborowa. Today on The Conversation, we will begin in West Africa, where the Nigerians in Diaspora Commission, NIDCOM, is seeking to extend the right to vote to other citizens living abroad. After that, we'll discuss the allegations of lopsided appointments leveled against President William Ruto of Kenya by affiliated parties in its Kenya Kwanzaa coalition. Stay with us. Now, every 4 years, as Nigeria prepare for general elections, this same concern always comes to bear. When will Nigerians living abroad be able to participate in the country's electoral process? For many years, that question has gone unanswered. However, ahead of the 2023 polls, the Nigeria in Diaspora Commission has appealed to the National Assembly to amend the sections of the Constitution and Electoral Act 2010 to allow Nigerians living abroad to participate in the forthcoming election and not be disenfranchised. Some African countries like Kenya, Angola, South Africa, Mozambique have diaspora voting enshrined in their constitutions, but it remains a dream for Nigerians abroad. Now, joining us live to discuss all of this, we have Abdur-Rahman Balogun, Head of Media and Public Relations at the Nigeria in Diaspora Commission, joining us from Ibadan in Oyo State, Nigeria. We also have Professor Kweku Adams, Associate Professor, University of Bradford, School of Management, joining us from Bradford in England. Gentlemen, welcome to the conversation.
Thank you.
Now, I would like to start with Abdur-Rahman. Your organization, Nigerians in Diaspora Commission, has been in the forefront of advocacy to clamor for diaspora voting. Earlier this year, the bill was shot down by the National Assembly. Why is this important to NIDCOM?
Oh, thank you very much for having me. Well, the diaspora voting is an age-long thing. It's been on for some time now, and it's very important for us in NIDCOM. Knowing fully well that we have estimated over 17 million Nigerians in the diaspora. Of course, we know there are more than that, but at least estimated 17 million Nigerians. We have these Nigerians who have been contributing to economic development of the country. As of December 2021, remittances from Nigerians abroad is over $22 billion. These Nigerians, they are Nigerians, and they should definitely be allowed to vote. They should participate in the electoral process, and they are agitated that they too want to participate in this electoral process. And as a body, as a commission, under the able leadership of the chairman CEO, Right Honorable Dr. Abdur-Rahman, she has been championing this even while in the parliament, that Nigerians in the diaspora should necessarily participate in the electoral process. And the effort has been on since, as far as I know, since 2009. It's been on, and that the effort led to the passage of the bill establishing Nigerian Diaspora Commission. The effort eventually led to what we now refer to sign into the law, the diaspora policy. So I believe that very soon, very, very soon, we shall equally get it. We thought we'd get it during the last constitutional review, but it was not possible due to some misunderstanding, and we hope that all the gray areas will be fine-tuned very, very soon.
We'll get back to that question of the grey areas, because there's a lot of important discussions we need to have on it. I'd like to bring in Professor Adams from Bradford. Diaspora voting is already being implemented by over 119 countries. African countries like Kenya, Botswana, Cape Verde, Central African Republic, Ghana, Mozambique, Senegal, and South Africa are already practicing diaspora voting as consistent with best global practices. Why is this important, and what does Nigeria stand to gain if and when we adopt this?
Oh, yeah, thank you for having me, first of all, and I'd like to wish my Nigerian colleagues and friends a very happy Christmas, and fingers crossed the elections next year is going to be good.
Thank you.
As is expected. I think the idea of voting in diaspora is important. I think my colleague already associated the enormous amount of diaspora investments, first of all, diaspora transmittance that comes to Africa. Ghana, for example, the amount of money that people who live overseas sends to Ghana amounts to 7.4 of Ghana's GDP. You know, that's about $4 billion. That is more than maybe 11 or 12 times foreign direct investments that the government receives. And so our voice must be heard. We are interested to be a part of what is going on in Ghana or in Africa. We have ideas that we think we need to be able to contribute those ideas. And the law says that every person who is right mind should be able to exercise that right of voting. So I don't see that excluding diaspora is the best way forward.
So when did Ghana adopt diaspora voting, Professor Adams?
Ghana started, I don't think Ghana's fully adopted it. There was a law that was passed in 2020, which is called ROPA, which allowed the Electoral Commission to implement. But there's been barrage of issues regarding resources, sending of electoral commissioners to go to all the countries. Because the moment you mention diaspora elections, your mind goes UK and USA, which is easier for electoral commission to do. But it's much more complex than that. And so it posed a lot of challenges for the Electoral Commission back in Ghana.
Thank you, Professor Adams. I'd like to bring in Duke Oputa from London in England. Duke, Nigeria's 1999 constitution does not give citizens living overseas the right to vote. Citizens like you that contribute immensely to the growth and development of Nigeria. There are approximately over 17 million Nigerians living abroad. The National Assembly, when it shot down this bill earlier this year, said Nigeria is yet to perfect its electoral process. As a result of this, it's not ready for overseas voting. What's your take on this? And do you think the National Assembly's reason is valid?
On the National Assembly vote, I personally don't accept the reasons that they gave because the question wasn't about competency. The question was about principle. What we put in front of them was the principle of allowing legitimate Nigerians the opportunity to come out and vote and exercise their rights and their franchise. And they denied that. It's National Assembly themselves do not carry out elections. They do not organize elections. That is down to INEC. And INEC, I believe, supported the bill completely. And so did indeed the other government agency that might have an interest, which is the Nigerians in the Diaspora Committee. So if these two bodies were felt was competent to actually proceed with allowing diaspora voting, there's no reason why the National Assembly should find ways to basically sidetrack here. But my suspicion is, like everything else, it's about political calculation. So ultimately, questions are, who is diaspora voting going to benefit? And politicians are going to be looking at it and asking themselves, is it going to benefit me or not? And if it is going to benefit them, they will vote for it. If it is not, they won't. And the perception at this point in time is that it won't. Basically, because of the fact that we run an extractive system, political system in our country, and that has been very lucrative for current politicians in terms of the way that they've been able to handle our resources. They won't do anything to change it. I believe that it should have been an election issue. It should have been one of the things that should be foremost in the manifestos of the three major or the four major political parties who are vying. We, the people, should have the right to decide what, when, and how it should be done. How is down to the bureaucrats, which we've put in place and paid for, i.e., INEC and other agencies that we have in the country.
Thank you, Duke. I'd like to bring back Abdur-Rahman of NIDCOM, that has been in the forefront of advocacy for pushing this bill. Now, Abdur-Rahman, a bill for an act to alter the provisions of the 1999 Constitution of Nigeria to provide for diaspora voting and for related matters was shut down by the National Assembly. It was on the 1st of March 2022, and it was voted down. What were the reasons given by the National Assembly? And I do understand that NIDCOM is still fighting to, present it, and they've been lobbying. So what are you going to do differently this time around? And what was the reason the National Assembly gave when it shut down this bill in March 2022?
Yeah, thank you very much. Of course, no reason was advanced. There was, if you recollect, there was a public hearing across the zones, and it was well received during the public hearing. I mean, the Nigerian diaspora, we have the National Diaspora Voting Council, ably led by Prince Abdur-Rahman. They have a group, like advocacy group. They went around the country, they lobbied for this, including we in the Nigerian Diaspora Commission and some other stakeholders, so many conferences, seminars to sensitize. After all these town hall meetings and campaign all over, they were just voting session by session. So when it got there, those who are in favor of the diaspora voting, they were less as against those who are not in favor of it. But the reason that they've been canvassing all along, one was that we've been having elections within the country. We still don't know how many we are. We are having an issue with the voters register. How do we know the number of Nigerians that will be voting in the diaspora? That's one issue they are raising. Two, the party in power will definitely influence. For instance, we are saying we have over 4 million or 4 million in US or whatever. If you have majority people there, they can, a 4 million votes from any of those continents would definitely give a winning sway to the party in power. So actually, basically, I think it's a matter of trust that our approach, the approach they want to have, INEC has been reassuring them that.
I was going to get to that part because Duke Oputa earlier mentioned in submission that look, it's not the National Assembly that it has a competency to organize elections. So in the course of your consultations and presentations, what is INEC's position on this?
The INEC position on this was that INEC assure us and reassure us that they are ready. They are ready, but INEC is asking for two things. One, there is a particular section that says that INEC cannot conduct election outside the country. They cannot conduct election outside the country. They can only conduct election within the confine of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So to do that, the National Assembly had to tinker with that section and amend it to say that INEC is now allowed to conduct election within and outside the country. That is one. Two, INEC on its own is having challenges on there must be a voter register in line with the Electoral law.
Act.
Now, how do we determine who are the Nigerians who are eligible to vote? For instance, in London, in South Africa, in America. How do we determine the eligible Nigerians and the eligibility of Nigerians who are capable to vote? Of course, we provided some suggestions that, okay, maybe to start with, can we use the Nigerian passport? Whoever has Nigerian passport is presumed to be a Nigerian. And then can we use our various High Commission, embassy as a kind of voters booth or center?
As is done by other countries that do practice this diaspora voting.
Yes, yes. We can start. I remember during Professor Morris' school, this discussion came up, former INEC chairman, and they were even planning to test on it in 4 continents: South Africa, in Africa, America, and then London. And I think India or China, they are just planning to test on it and see how it will go. But the lawmakers is shutting down.
Okay.
That no, we are not through yet with our own. Maybe if we are through with this, our beavers and some other technology that we are employing now, maybe by next election, we'll be able to do it.
I believe, it's the next general elections are 5 years from now, 2027, and it's something we can look at. Professor Adams, you just had Abdur-Rahman there talking about the concerns raised by the National Assembly, but let's get into the logistics of it. I don't mean to compare Ghana with Nigeria. There's totally different countries with different capacity and populations. But what are some of the obstacles that Ghana has faced in implementing diaspora voting? Abdur-Rahman talked about number of Nigerians, those who will be eligible, political considerations, and also INEC's readiness. They say they're ready, they have the competency for this. So what are some of those problems that we might encounter if we push ahead with this?
I think I agree with most of the things that he mentioned. I think the main thing is trust, trust and abuse, because how do you know the number of people overseas who acquired their passports the right way through the right channel? How do we know the number of people who are legitimately able to vote? And how do we protect that system that it doesn't get abused? So the key thing here is about trust and the abuse of the system. I want to propose a solution here, and I'm not sure that's what Ghana has done in work in Nigeria's favor or not, because these are context-specific issues.
Yes.
What Ghana did, first of all, is they have what they call ROPA, People Assembly law that protects that. And they got people to register. So if you're a Ghanaian, once you have a Ghanaian passport and the passport is checked by the High Commission in that particular country, they register you and they link your passport registration with your voter's ID card. So you got 2 things there. You're registered to vote. That's one. You got the ID card for the voter's registration card, which is then connected to your passport. And then the second thing they do is create an online interface that is very easy for people to use. And then you cannot log in without these 2 particular information. And you cannot get access or vote without that. So even though it's not a perfect system now, but that's what has been done at the moment. The other thing that using an online voting system does, or maybe a postal system does, is that basically it reduces the amount of money that the Electoral Commission, let's say, for example, in Ghana, the Electoral Commission would have to spend to go to each of these countries to monitor the elections, basically. Because the basis of election is to elect the legitimate person and to make sure those who are voting are legitimate. So these are the 2 key things, trust and abuse. And I hope that maybe you have an online, if you look at the US or UK, for example, They've got online voting system. They got postal voting system. These are some of the ideas that can be replicated in Nigeria and Ghana. And I think maybe my colleague can be able to jump on that as well.
Thank you very much, Professor Adams. Now, Duke, the panelists have raised some concerns about how this would exactly work out. The Nigerian Constitution says in order to elect a president, the winner will be elected from a 12-2/3 spread of Nigerian states. So where do you put the diaspora vote as a block? And also, there's some that are apprehensive about diaspora voting. They say without the adequate technology, it will be an invitation to rigging. How do you react to this?
Well, like I said before, once you accept in principle that this is the right thing to do, the process that gets it done effectively and properly and efficiently can be organized by the bureaucrats in the civil service. The issue, for instance, of where you classify a vote in terms of determining what state it belongs to, again, that is mute because it's an easy thing to do. Before you can register in a foreign embassy as a Nigerian who is legitimately resident in that country, you'd have to provide certain types of evidence, which we do at the moment. Virtually every single form from the federal government that you have to fill for anything these days has a state of origin on it anyway. So if that is part of the information that you're going to offer to the High Commission as evidence that you are Nigerian, then that automatically becomes the domicile of your vote. It's not, it's common sense. So, I mean, these are simply stalling techniques. None of these things has anything to do with the issue, which is, should Nigerians who happen to be temporarily living out of the country have the opportunity to participate in our election? And the overwhelming answer to that is yes, because as you said, Gbenga, 100+ African countries already do that. In fact, some Eastern European countries don't even require you to go to a High Commission. I've seen polling booths in the middle of shopping malls in London for elections in Eastern Europe. So it is doable. What we should be asking here really is, why is the National Assembly against this voting option? Why are they against it? As Prof already pointed out, I mean, key thing is, I mean, you've said there are 17 million Nigerians in diaspora. Well, that figure is disputed by other figures bandied around by people like the United Nations Economic and Social outfit. I mean, they put the figure at 1.7 million, but every which way you look, you know, the total votes that we get in a presidential election is probably less than 30 million or between 30 and 35 million, I imagine. I think I'm right there. And if that is the case, even a 3 million vote ballot from outside Nigeria can make a significant difference to the outcome of an election.
How do you address issues?
The key thing here, in my view, is what we should really be fighting, which is the overall transformation of the establishment of the Nigerian government, the way we run things, the way we approach our stuff, who has the power to do what and stop what. That is what we should be concentrating on, because once we actually manage to do something about that, most of these things all will fall into place. You know, diaspora voting, I'm disenfranchised. I would like to vote, but I can't. How do you justify that? What do you tell me as an individual about my rights? Forget about the issue of remittances and stuff like that. I mean, that really doesn't come into it at all, because we don't vote because we are wealthy. We don't vote because we contribute more economically. We vote because we have a right in a pluralistic democratic system for every single person to have that franchise, man and woman. That's all there is to it. And anybody that wants to deviate from that and go somewhere else is basically stalling the whole process.
Thank you, Duke. Now, Abdur-Rahman, what's next? What's the next plan of action for NIDCOM and all those groups that are in the forefront of this advocacy to have diaspora voting included in the Nigerian Constitution? And what do you think the next plan of action would be? And is 2027 a dream that is realistic to have diaspora voting included in our Electoral Act?
Yeah, well, that is my prayer. I hope so. I pray so, that it will be very realistic in 2027. And one thing I want to advise our Nigerians in diaspora is that they should keep up the lobbying. Let each and every one of them talk to their lawmakers, because it seems that is where we are having the obstacle now. And then we want to, and once it is done at that level, I think every other process, INEC said they are ready. And there are two things for INEC to just do. One, to amend that section of the constitution that is preventing INEC from conducting election outside the country. Two, the Electoral Act says INEC must have voters register. So people want to know how many Nigerians are in UK, how many Nigerians are in America. People want to know that. I think the problem is basically the issue of data. If we are able to establish that, maybe the lawmakers will relax a little bit and say, okay, fine. We know we are expecting 1 million votes from UK, London, 1 million votes from America or so. As a matter of fact, let me just correct an impression. Nigerians were even more than 17 million. That's just an estimation, because in Sudan alone, we have over 4 million Nigerians. In Sudan. And in UK, in US, we have over 4 million Nigerians each there. In those three countries.
Abdur-Rahman, how do you respond to the concerns of those who say this might just be an invitation to rigging? How do you address their concerns?
Yes, how we address their concern is let them come out. Presently, the Nigeria National Identity Management Commission, NIDCOM, that is doing the national identity. Yes. They are in UK, US, I think South Africa. I want to employ Nigerians in the diaspora, and I think there is in Kingdom of Saudi Arabia too. All these countries that they are going now, let Nigerians who are there come out, get registered and get their national identity. Because that is another fallback option, in our opinion, that can serve as like a voter's card. If you have your national identity or your national identity number, then you can also, okay, in United States of America, we have 500,000 Nigerians. In London, we have 300,000 Nigerians. I think this is what the politicians want to know. Not just a nebulous figure that Nigerians, we are 2 million, 3 million in UK. The thing scares them because they believe they are all politicians, they know the game. They believe that whoever is the party in power will definitely influence the voting pattern in his favor. So it's a genuine concern. We are addressing that concern by saying, let us have the data. If we have the data of number of registered voters, see what is happening now. They are able to contend with the issue of overvoting because they know the number of registered voters in a particular area. So the issue of overvoting will not happen in London or in America or South Africa.
So adequate
number of registered voters.
Adequate data and proper technology would address these concerns.
Yes, I agree with you.
Thank you, Abdur-Rahman. Now, Professor Adams, before we wrap things up, you're a Ghanaian living in the diaspora, and I do know how the Ghanaian government in Accra is receptive to the diaspora and even non-Africans, people of black origin. How important is the role of the African diaspora to different nations' development?
Well, you know, when you look at every country that is developed, it is built by the diaspora. You look at Israel, the nation of Israel, it's the diaspora that has built Israel to where it is. When you look at UK, for example, It is the diaspora, British people, British businesses in different countries that bring the money home. You look at the US, for example, it's the same thing. So I think the ideas that the diaspora bring, the knowledge that the diaspora bring, the resources that the diaspora bring is an immense contribution, bigger than any IMF loan or World Bank loan that we go and borrow, which I am against, basically. So I think what my colleague said in the show actually said was that, voting is a right. And whether people are economically making any contribution or not, it doesn't have to have any correlation. So voting, these are things that our countries must depoliticize. They should not politicize voting, the voting rights of people in the diaspora. These are very simple things that technology that we have got nowadays could be used to make it possible for those who live abroad to vote. But everything, whether it's in Ghana or Kenya or Nigeria, it is politicized, and that should not be the case. And the point is, once we are disenfranchised from voting, what you find is that people who normally would not contribute the ideas either. So the ideas is needed, the financial resources is needed, technology is needed, investment is needed. Instead of chasing IMF and World Bank for loans, we can depend and rely on diasporans to make a fine contribution to our countries, back home in Ghana or Nigeria, and make everyone benefit from it.
Thank you, Professor Adams. I'd like Duke Oputa to have the final say on this subject. Duke, if you can, in less than a minute, why is the Nigerian diaspora important, and what should be the next plan of action as lobbies continue to try to get the National Assembly to vote on this matter, to pass it, to amend the Electoral Act so that diaspora voting can come into law?
To accept the fact that in principle it is the right thing to do. But it is crucial that we get the diaspora involved in our elections for one good reason, which is that much as the Nigerian electorate is a very strong and a very wise electorate, the economic conditions and the political conditions and social conditions that we have in our country make it very difficult for individuals to make decisions about voting that are actually in their interest, because there are other factors that cloud these interests, and these factors are very difficult to remove when you are constrained within the economic tightness of the country. People in diaspora, on the other hand, have the ability to vote without those constraints. And perhaps by being able to see how your diaspora brothers and sisters vote after elections are analyzed, one can begin to understand perhaps the way that Nigerian electorate should be approaching elections and choosing their leaders. That is the most important thing. Okay. An example, an importation of experience from outside Nigeria.
Thank you very much, gentlemen, for being a part of the conversation. Abdur-Rahman Balogun, Head of Media and Public Relations at Nigerian Diaspora Commission, joined in from Ibadan in Oyo State, and Duke Oputa, Public Affairs Analyst from London, United Kingdom, and also Professor Kweku Adams of the University of Bradford School of Management in England. Thank you so much for your time and contribution to the conversation. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gbenga.